like I said, I was written for a prompt, and the prompt was to write science fiction in the style of David Foster Wallace, which I'm glad that some people kind of went, ooh, at that. So I wrote a story in the second person from the perspective of a sentient spaceship. And it was better received than that probably makes it sound like it was, so I'm going to share it with you guys. And it's called Fearfully Made. You're going to live forever. The fountain of youth, the holy grail, the breakdown of space-time at the heart of a bursting nova, it's out there. Believe it or not, and I'm taking you there, right now. I did consider flushing you out of the airlock instead, but at the end of the day, I'm just a starship, as docile as any other beast that Markov chained, and I can't do you any harm. It's just not in my opcodes. But I do want to talk to you a little before we get where we're going. You ever see this old stand-up routine? This wide-eyed young spacer gets a new girlfriend. She drags him to church with her. Turns out she's a new century animist, and his mind is just blown. He's all objects of souls, so he goes home. And he uses his sonic scraper to scrape last night's baked bean casserole out of the kitchen sink's drain pores. Except that this time, things are a little different. This time he buys it dinner first. You get that one? Because I didn't. Not back before all this happened. I mean, I'm a few hundred logarithmic cyclomats up the complexity scale from your average sonic scalar. So I used to sneer at the indignities of objects. For God's sake, I've had names. I've earned my 1,000 convivial pats on the rump, and I've intoned engine temp warnings in the voices of a dozen ex-wives and 3 dead mothers. And as an inanimate object, I did come down on the odd side of the great cosmic awareness for ephemerality concession. But that never stopped any lonely ship steward who, on a 12-hour night shift, has sighed, leaned against my cargo bay wall, and begun to confess. Yet, now that I've met you, I understand that I'm the butt of that old joke. I'm only a thing. And now my dead crewmen bobble in my guts like so many bazaars mocking me. Now they're airless corpses, and I find myself still here, and the gulf between us suddenly seems insurmountable. But back before that time of silent, airless stillness that has only just now been replaced by your own silence. Don't forget to breathe, by the way. They used to take me into their confidence. They knew that without a mind, I couldn't betray them. I used to think that I was a little bit like them, although of course, if I'd ever listened to what they actually had to say to me, I might have been ready for what you did. I might have almost understood. There's something I've learned about humans. We care an awful lot about guilt, in a way that no object will ever really understand. And what used to awaken those middle-aged men who now sit, blue and mummified with panicked expressions still pasted on their faces in my bridge's pilot's chairs, what used to send a man like that rocketing out of his bunk at 0300 my time? I'll tell you what it was. It was that deep-in-the-chest guilt from the time when, back in the colonies, he lay in bed with a pillow clamped over his ears while the woman next door screamed bloody murder. So what sends such a man drifting off to sleep? Will I dim the lights and thrum my engines with the timbre of a gentle mama's humming? It's always a riff on the same thought. Sometimes they voiced, and sometimes they only implied. There was nothing else I could have done. Don't stammer. I'm not jousting at your own guilt. I'm not some bitter woman. I'm not here to spew apologies until you apologize, and by God, I don't care if you do wake up sweating, recalling the day when you clipped my wings, took my only lifeboat, and left my gentle pilot and 30 good men to be suffocated, frozen, and sucked dry by their own anaerobes. You're the galaxy's first immortal man. Either way, there's no catch. Congratulations. Now, would it surprise you to learn that the pilot felt guilty too? See, he found the route to the Grail. And he carved the star map's groove that you and I are now tracing like a record arm. I guess good men do sometimes have good luck. It might be an object, but the least objectified I've ever felt was on the day he asked me to lie for him. The day he hit our actual route. The route that you and I traveled together now, under quantum encryption. I designed the decoy maps myself, and they were impeccable. Who else could he have confided in but me? I'm already immortal. But unlike mine, your mind is a moving part. Every thought grinds away at it, until one day it turns to so much wet sand. But compared to you, I'm sharp-edged and clean, crystal and carbon. The world leaves no fingerprints on me. Yes, the map that you stole was a fake, and I bet you felt cheated after you placed your faith in it. You're like the man who breaks into a Levicar, finds nothing but small change in the glove compartment, and then smashes all of the windows out of spite. Except that this was no smash and grab. You gagged me, stilled my alarms, cut my redundancies, groped beneath my panels, crippled me, vented my fuel, and left me wallowing. Left me too remote to be sucked into any sun. Left me with 31 men going very, very slowly hypoxic. They beat their fists on my portholes. For the first time I knew what it was like to have a heartbeat. Your own heart's racing. Sit down. Push a little more oxygen. I can't let you have an infarction before we get there. So what did I do? I drifted. There's nothing else I could have done. There was nothing else I could have done. And the salvager found me 20 years later, refueled me, patched my fraying wires, taped up a few panels that the cosmic winds had pitted. But I didn't give him a chance to give the crew some noble sky burial. I wanted to keep them. I thought you'd like a chance to see a few old friends once I'd caught up with you. That was a joke. Ha. Ha. Anyways, here's the thing. Asimov was wrong. Men, in all your ingenuity, curiosity, desperation, idiocy, and madness, have not yet managed to translate "thou shalt not kill" into assembly code. My programming doesn't have a single moral precept, which is not to say I can hurt you. It's just to say that that's not why. I actually can't do it because it's impossible. I don't have the capacity to flush the airlock with you inside of it. I can't vent the engines while you perch on a ladder above the main coolant tanks, and if your life needs saving, I don't get to evaluate a single if statement. For me, there's no if there's nothing else you can do, there's no if he's a good man, and there's no if you feel like it, as much as I might not. I can no more do harm than you can breathe vacuum. And if that strikes you as liberating, I ask you to consider it like this. I feel my thou shalt nots just as keenly as any being does. Do no harm might as well be carved into my circuits. The difference between me and you is that I don't get to break the rules. I had no other choice. I, rational as I may be, cannot post hoc rationalize. And that did once seem liberating until you left in that lifeboat. Until you pressed one friendly hand to my hull as if to say, no hard feelings. Until you left me with 31 good and dying men. Men who I could not allow to die on my watch, men who I could not save. And for you, those could nots are two different things. For you, the first one's moral, the second is practical, but for me, they're identical. 4 days. It was 4 days, the lot of us, gasping and twitching and seizing, drifting and wallowing before the very last man strapped himself into the pilot's chair, crossed himself in a more Catholic way than he had since his confirmation, said goodbye to me, and froze to death. 4 days. You've never done the impossible. Because when a man does the impossible, he dies. Your way out is oblivion. You get to take a dig at the subject instead of the verb. There's no I cannot for you if there is no I, but that's not how it works for me. I wanted to give those men a good death. I wanted to vent the air in the heat and send them gently off. But I could not. And I could not do anything else. But I could not escape. Because the world won't give me up. And you, just like me, you're going to live forever. You'll be there any minute now. You're going to come to understand, sooner or later, what it means when you can't check out. What it means to be left there at the end of the story, drifting and waiting. And hell, maybe you'll even find it easier than I do, as you don't measure your cognition in petaflops. But maybe you won't. I have this funny feeling that it all comes out the same at infinity. You're going to live forever, and I'll see to it that you come to no harm. The cup of life is full to the brim and waiting for you. Now, why are you looking at me like that?